I have moved your father's inheritance into my account. I'm beginning anew with someone who truly gets me. I'm Trevor, 43 years old. For the past 15 years, I've worked as a financial planner in Charlotte. I received the message while I was assessing client portfolios at my desk, the same desk where I've assisted countless individuals in safeguarding their finances from situations like this. I read the message 2 times. Then I examined the bank screenshots she had included. The joint account balance was zero. $8,300 vanished just like that. My wife, Brianna, was meant to be at a wellness retreat in Sedona, something related to chakras and discovering her true self. I had, of course, covered the costs. Just like I had for the emotional detox weekend in Asheville, the mindfulness retreat in Colorado, and the spiritual awakening workshop in California. She had changed since my father passed away 6 months ago. She had become colder, more insistent about our finances, always pushing to gain a better understanding of our finances, wanting access to accounts, inquiring about the inheritance. I replied, "Understood. Enjoy yourself." Then I put the phone down and returned to my work. The reality of being a financial planner is that you notice trends. You become adept at identifying warning signs. When someone suddenly shows interest in joint accounts after years of letting you manage everything, that's a warning sign. When they begin asking about your father's will before the funeral has even concluded, that's another. When they demand to have access to manage our finances right after a significant inheritance arrives in your account, well, that's no longer just a warning sign. That's an alarm. My dad had been a mechanic. He owned a small garage on the outskirts of town. He worked 16-hour shifts, saved every cent he could. He had left me everything. Not a lot by some measures, but it meant everything to me. It represented his life's efforts, his legacy, his way of ensuring I was secure. Brianna had always been envious of the bond my dad and I shared. She would roll her eyes when I spent Sundays at his shop, either helping with the books or just chatting. She'd make sarcastic remarks about being Daddy's boy when she thought I couldn't hear. After the funeral, she embarked on her wellness journey. She claimed she needed space to cope with her grief, needed to rediscover herself, needed costly retreats to realign her chakras. I had sensed something was off when she kissed me goodbye at the airport. It felt too long, too emotional, as if she were bidding farewell for good. Now I understood why. Brianna and I had been married for 8 years. We met at a coffee shop downtown when I was 35 and thought I would remain single forever. She was stunning, charismatic, and said all the right things about wanting a stable life with a good partner. The initial years were pleasant. She worked at a boutique, earned a decent income, and we shared expenses fairly. We purchased a home together, discussed having children, planned vacations, the usual married couple activities. However, something changed after we reached the 5th year. She began voicing her feelings of spiritual emptiness. She started attending workshops on discovering one's higher purpose. She began following influencers who spoke about toxic relationships and limiting beliefs. My dad noticed it before I did. "She's distancing herself from you, son," he said one Sunday while we worked on his books. "I can see it in how she looks at you like you're an obstacle." I defended her, claiming she was merely going through a phase, exploring herself and finding her way. Dad simply nodded and returned to the ledger. Yet, he had been correct. The distancing had been gradual. She had ceased to inquire about my day, stopped showing interest in client anecdotes or office conflicts, and began spending more time on her phone and more nights out with friends I had never met. The wellness retreats had begun modestly. A weekend yoga seminar here, a meditation session there. However, after my father's diagnosis, they became larger, pricier, and more frequent. "I need to channel this energy," she would say when I questioned the expenses. "Your father's condition is disrupting my spiritual equilibrium. I paid for them because I cared for her, because I believed that grief impacted individuals in various ways, because I wanted to be compassionate." The warning signs had been evident for months. She had begun inquiring about our finances more regularly. She wanted to grasp our investment portfolios, our savings, and our financial strategies. She mentioned feeling excluded from crucial decisions. When my father's will was disclosed, she stood right next to me. She squeezed my hand when the attorney mentioned the sum. She murmured about how we could truly start anew now with that kind of money. I assumed she meant together. She had strongly advocated for shared access to everything, claiming that married couples should completely share their finances. She framed it as romantic, like a deeper level of trust and commitment. I consented to joint access for our regular accounts. But something inside me hesitated to place Dad's money there directly. Perhaps it was all those years of witnessing financial disasters in my profession. Perhaps it was simply intuition. Whatever it was, I heeded it. I remained in my office for an extended period after receiving her message. I didn't call anyone. I didn't break anything. I merely sat there reflecting on the $8,300 she believed she had taken. The amount was just right. In fact, enough to feel substantial if you thought it was everything. Small enough that losing it wouldn't devastate me if things went awry. You see, the key to financial planning is always having contingencies. You prepare for the worst-case scenario because people are predictable at their lowest moments. Greed renders them careless. Desperation makes them foolish. And betrayal breeds overconfidence. I had witnessed it happen to clients countless times. The wife who emptied accounts during divorce proceedings. The business partner who transferred money just before vanishing. The adult child who depleted their elderly parents' savings. They all made the same error. They believed that having access equated to having control. I opened my laptop and examined the actual accounts. The Wyoming LLC remained intact. Dad's funds were precisely where I had placed them 6 months prior, yielding steady returns in a diversified investment. The trust fund I had set up was secure. The investment accounts were safeguarded. Brianna had taken the bait money, the small sum I intentionally left available in our joint account after she had insisted on financial transparency, the amount that would make her feel triumphant while safeguarding what truly mattered. My phone vibrated. Another message from her. I know you're hurt, but this is for the best. We both understand our marriage has been over for months. At least now we can both proceed honestly. Honest? That was ironic. I had been truthful with her about everything except the one thing that was most crucial, the one thing my instincts had urged me to protect. I thought about my dad, about all those Sundays spent in his shop. He taught me more than just how to balance books. He taught me how to read people, how to understand their true desires, and how to safeguard what was important. Trust but verify, he would often say. And if you can't verify, don't trust. I had evaluated Brianna's character over the last few months. I observed her as she pushed boundaries, tested limits, and searched for vulnerabilities. She had failed every challenge without realizing she was under scrutiny. Now she believed she had succeeded, that she had outsmarted me, taken what was mine, and secured her future with someone who truly understands her. She was completely unaware of what lay ahead. I grabbed my phone and typed a brief reply. I hope the money brings you joy. Then I opened a fresh document on my computer and began creating a list. Not a list for revenge, but one for recovery. Steps to take, people to contact, processes to follow. Brianna had made her decision. Now it was time for me to make mine. 3 days went by before Brianna reached out. I was at my desk reviewing a client's retirement plan when my phone buzzed. Her number appeared. I let it go to voicemail. Trevor, we need to talk. I know you're upset, but ignoring me is childish. Please call me back. I did not return the call. I went home, prepared dinner, watched the news, and went to bed. A typical evening. She called again the following morning. Seriously, Trevor, this silent treatment is absurd. I took the money because it benefits us both. You'll come to understand that in time. Still, I did not call back. The third call arrived that afternoon while I was with the Hendersons discussing their college fund. My secretary knocked and said it was urgent. Trevor. Brianna's tone was sharper now. I know you're there. Answer the phone. We need to talk. I excused myself from the meeting and said, What do you want to talk about? I kept my tone steady and professional. The divorce documents. My attorney insists we need to file soon to keep everything straightforward. And before you consider contesting this, the money transfer was entirely legal. We shared joint accounts, remember? You granted me access, I recall. Great. So let's approach this like adults. I'll file for no fault. We'll divide everything else equally, and we can both move forward. What about the house? I will want my share of the equity, of course, and half of your retirement funds. My lawyer says I'm entitled to spousal support, considering the length of our marriage. I nearly smiled. Almost. Your lawyer mentioned that? Yes. He assessed our finances and indicated, I have a strong case, particularly with the evidence of all the money you concealed from me. Concealed from you? Don't act naive, Trevor. I know there's more money than what was in our joint account. Dad's inheritance must have been worth more than $8,000. A mechanic who worked for 40 years and owned his own shop. There must be hundreds of thousands hidden away. Now I did smile. She couldn't see it, but I smiled. You think there's more money? I know there is, and my attorney knows how to uncover it. Concealed assets won't remain hidden during divorce proceedings. You should definitely have your lawyer investigate that. Something in my tone must have resonated because she fell silent for a moment. What does that imply? Nothing, just that you should certainly have your lawyer conduct a comprehensive inquiry. I want everything to be open. Trevor, you're making me a bit uneasy. You're too calm about this. Why should I be upset? You said this is what's best for both of us. It is, but I hope your lawyer discovers everything he's searching for. I ended the call. An hour later, she called again. My attorney wants to meet with you and your lawyer next week. We can resolve this swiftly if you're willing to work with me. I haven't hired a lawyer yet. Well, you should find one. And Trevor, don't attempt to conceal any assets. My attorney focuses on high net worth divorces. He will uncover everything. I'm relying on that. That night, I took action on something I had been delaying for months. I drove over to my father's former shop. The new owner had maintained most of it, but it felt different without my dad there. I parked my truck and reflected on our last conversation 2 days before his passing when he was aware but frail. Son, there's something I need to share with you regarding money. I tried to quiet him down, saying we could discuss it later, but he was adamant. People will attempt to take what belongs to you. Family, friends, wives, especially wives. Promise me you'll be wise about it. I agreed. I thought I was just indulging a dying man's fears. It seems he understood Brianna better than I did. The meeting with Brianna's attorney was set for the next Tuesday. I arrived by myself, which appeared to surprise everyone. Mr. Sandlin, the lawyer greeted me, shaking my hand. I'm James Patterson, representing your wife in this case. Brianna was seated next to him, exuding confidence. She had styled her hair and was wearing a new dress. The wellness retreat seemed to have improved her complexion, too. Where's your attorney? Patterson inquired. I don't have one yet. I wanted to hear what you had to say first. Patterson and Brianna exchanged looks. This wasn't the typical approach for these meetings. Well, Patterson continued, let's get straight to the point. We've conducted some initial research on your finances, and we know there are considerable assets you haven't revealed, such as your father's estate, which was valued at over $400,000 according to tax documents, yet only $8,000 appears in your joint accounts. Where's the remainder? I pulled out a folder I had brought and placed it on the table. Right here. Patterson opened it. Bank statements, investment accounts, insurance policies, LLC documents, everything. He reviewed it page by page, his expression shifting as he read. Brianna leaned in to see. What is all this? She asked. Patterson remained silent for a long moment. Finally, he looked up. Mrs. Sandlin, we need to have a private discussion. No, Brianna insisted. Whatever it is, say it here. We agreed to be transparent. Patterson glanced at me, then back at her. The funds you transferred from the joint account were not your husband's inheritance. What do you mean? I mean, the account you drained was funded by your husband's personal savings. The inheritance money never entered any account accessible to you. Brianna's face turned pale. That's impossible. I reviewed the bank statements. I tracked the account activity. You only saw what your husband permitted you to see. The $8,300 you withdrew was money he intentionally placed in the joint account. The true inheritance is in this folder. He tapped the file. In accounts and investments you never had access to, but that's illegal. Concealing assets from your spouse is illegal. Patterson shook his head. Not when those assets were never considered marital property from the start. Your husband inherited this money 6 months ago and promptly placed it into a separate LLC and trust structure. Completely lawful. Completely safeguarded. I observed Brianna processing this revelation, noticing the moment it registered with her. You set me up, she murmured. No, I replied. I safeguarded myself. There's a distinction. The money I withdrew is yours to retain, I said. Consider it a divorce settlement. Patterson was now focused on something else he was reading. A file from the back of the folder. Mrs. Sandlin, there's one more thing. Your prenuptial agreement has a provision regarding asset transfer without agreement. We don't have a prenup. Brianna responded, Actually, you do. It was signed 8 years ago. Your husband's copy is notarized and has witnesses. He presented her with the document. I observed her as she read it, recalling the moment she signed it. We informed her it was merely paperwork for the home purchase. She had signed it without reviewing it. The provision was straightforward. Any effort to transfer assets without mutual consent would lead to the loss of all rights to marital property. This can't be legal, she remarked. It is entirely legal. and the money transfer you initiated clearly falls under this provision. Brianna gazed at me with an expression I had never witnessed before. Fear. Trevor, please. We can resolve this. I made an error. I will return the money. I rose to my feet. Keep it. I said, you deserve it. I exited that attorney's office feeling lighter than I had in months. Not vindicated or victorious, just liberated. Brianna caught up with me in the parking lot. Trevor, hold on, please. We need to discuss this. There's nothing to discuss. You made your decision. I felt bewildered and emotional. The retreat and the spiritual work I've been engaged in helped me recognize things about our marriage that you wanted to escape from. Fine, you're out, but not in this manner. I don't want to cause you pain. I halted and turned to face her. You didn't hurt me, Brianna. You revealed your true self. That's actually a gift. The prenup, the concealed accounts. You orchestrated all of this. I prepared for the possibility, a significant distinction. She was now crying. Genuine tears, not the manipulative ones I had grown accustomed to over the past year. What about the person I'm seeing? You don't even want to hear about that? No, his name is Derek. He's a life coach from the retreat. He understands my spiritual journey in ways you never could. Good for him. Don't you care that I'm leaving you for another man? I climbed into my truck and rolled down the window. Brianna, I stopped caring about your actions months ago. The only thing I cared about was safeguarding what my father left me. Mission accomplished. She stood in the parking lot as I drove away, still crying, still likely not grasping that this had ended long before she ever met Derek, the life coach. In the following 2 weeks, I managed the logistics, changed locks, updated insurance beneficiaries, closed joint accounts, and forwarded her mail to her sister's address where she was staying. She called several times, attempting various tactics: anger, guilt, bargaining, and threats. I kept the discussions brief and professional. The divorce papers arrived on a Thursday. I signed them right away and sent them back. No contest, no complications. She could keep the $8,000 she had taken and nothing more. My lawyer called the next week. She's attempting to contest the prenup, he said, claiming she was pressured into signing it. No case, the witnesses are still available. The notary has records, and there's no proof of coercion. Additionally, the asset transfer she initiated actually strengthens our case. How long until it's finalized? 6 months? Maybe less if she stops resisting. She did cease her resistance. Derek, the life coach, evidently wasn't keen on a drawn-out legal dispute with an uncertain outcome. Funny how spiritual enlightenment faded when finances became tight. The papers were finalized on a Tuesday in March. I was at my workplace when the alert came in. I didn't feel like celebrating. I didn't feel like grieving. I simply felt like moving ahead. That weekend, I drove to my father's grave. I hadn't visited since the funeral, but it seemed like the right time. You were right about her. I spoke to the gravestone. Thank you for teaching me to be wise about it. The wind began to blow, rustling the oak tree under which he was laid to rest. It could have been a coincidence. It might have been him acknowledging my words. It didn't matter either way. I returned to my truck and made my way home. I had a house to myself now, some money saved, and a clear mind. Brianna had started fresh with someone who understood her. I had done the same, just with more wisdom. The call arrived 6 months later while I was having lunch at my desk. It was Brianna's voice, but it sounded different, fearful. Trevor, I need your help. I almost hung up, but something in her voice held me back. Derek left me, she revealed. He took the money and vanished. All of it. I set my sandwich down. What money? The $8,000 from our account, plus my savings, plus the funds I borrowed against my sister's house to invest in his life coaching venture. What's the total? $37,000. I was silent for a long moment. Brianna, why are you reaching out to me? Because I don't know where else to turn. My sister won't talk to me. Derek isn't answering his phone. His business was a sham. Trevor, it was all a con. And what do you want from me? I know I don't deserve it, but could you lend me enough to repay my sister? I'll lose everything if I can't cover her mortgage. I considered it. I really thought it through. No, please, Trevor. I know I hurt you, but you didn't just hurt me, Brianna. You attempted to deceive me. You plotted to leave me with nothing while you ran off with another man. The only reason you're calling now is that your scheme failed. I felt confused and lost. I made awful choices. Yes, you did, and now you must face the consequences. So that's it? You're just gonna let me lose everything? You've already lost everything that mattered. The rest is merely details. I ended the call. 2 years have gone by since that last exchange. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Brianna moved back in with her parents in Tennessee, lost her sister's house, filed for bankruptcy, and now works in retail. Derek never appeared again. He's likely running the same scam on someone else in a different city. I sold our old house and purchased a smaller one near my dad's shop. Nothing extravagant, but it's mine. It's a quiet neighborhood with good neighbors and space for a workshop in the garage. The inheritance funds have steadily increased. Smart investments, careful strategies, the kind of long-term planning my dad would have supported. I've been able to assist a few clients in avoiding their own financial pitfalls. I share some hard-earned insights about asset protection and recognizing warning signs. I started dating again recently. I met a woman named Grace at a financial literacy workshop I was leading. She's a teacher, divorced, and has 2 children. We take things slow, keep our finances separate, and she actually laughs when I discuss trust but verify banking strategies. She knows about Brianna, understands the inheritance situation, and says she's impressed by how I managed it. But I don't view it that way. I simply did what my dad taught me. Protect what mattered and let the rest work itself out. At times, I contemplate whether my marriage could have been preserved had I approached situations in a different manner, being more trusting, more transparent, and more inclined to take emotional and financial chances. However, I then recall that text message, its casual malice, and the extensive planning that likely preceded her treachery. And I understand the reality. Certain individuals are worth the gamble, while others simply are not. The challenge lies in discerning which is which before it leads to losing everything. Gaining that insight was worth